A subway rat made eye contact with me and said, "Join us. When the train comes, we slide under the tracks and we feel it rumble over us like a warm thunderstorm. We live forever, and we love to live," he said. And I said, "No, thank you. I am too large." And then he turned away from me, and I cried. That is a bit of a meme poem that's been making its rounds all over the internet. I've seen it maybe 4 times in my life, and this most recent time I found it extra striking. And not just striking, I found it less absurd, less random, and even kind of relevant. We're playing Into the Gungeon today. I want to play as the Bullet, because the Bullet probably takes the least brain power for me. And, it's been a while since I've done a live commentary type thing. The last two that I did were kind of different too. They were more like rants or maybe like confessions almost. Or like, I had something to get off my chest more than anything. And I want this to be a little bit different. I want this to sound more like a just conversation, like a nice little conversation between me and, my potential audience in the future. That's what I want. And, I would go as far as to say that I've never done a live commentary because, one of them that I did, I had like notes and stuff to keep me on topic. And the other one that I did, I basically recorded a bunch of audio, and then later on I recorded whatever the task was, and then I overlaid, what I was saying over the task. And so it wasn't really a live commentary because I wasn't, live talking while I was doing the thing, which is kind of what a live commentary is. And so like I said, I would go as far as to argue that I've never made a live commentary, and, I want to make one. I want to give an update, talk with everybody. Although I will admit, this project is kind of pissing me off a little bit. It's kind of upsetting me because it should not be taking this long. I'm not even lying when I say this. This is day 8 of me trying to record this. And this is probably attempt number 50 or something. It is 3:16 in the morning. So actually in an hour, we will be going on day 9. At 4 in the morning, we will be going on day 9 of me trying my hand at just making a little video where I play the game and I talk. And I don't know. I think what happens is I find myself deleting footage very often, even when maybe I shouldn't. I got as close as to almost pressing publish on one take, but I don't even know. I can't always even give a reason as to why I don't like a thing. That one in particular, I don't know why I didn't like it. It's just I listened back to it one extra time and I really didn't feel one way or another about it. I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't upset with it. And so I deleted it. But sometimes I am just upset with it. So far, I haven't found myself happy with what I've recorded. Like, look at that. That leads me exactly into what I want to say. I find myself very upset about my own gameplay. I found myself deleting my gameplay once because, I put the gameplay in as kind of a courtesy thing because I would find it immensely boring if somebody, just talked for a while over a black screen. It's not really a video at that point. It's almost like a podcast. It's like a boring podcast with, no budget, no special guest, no nothing. And, I don't really want that. I don't really want that because I don't listen to podcasts at all. I don't find them very entertaining or interesting. The only times that I would have time to listen to a podcast is when, come on, whatever. The only times that I would have to listen to a podcast is when I'm working or something. And at that point, I would just listen to music, And so I don't really want to upload something that's reminiscent of a podcast. I want to give you guys something to look at. But, I find that the game takes a lot of my focus. And you can only have one, I guess. You can only have good conversational, dialogue, or you can have good gameplay. And it seems kind of silly, because the gameplay is kind of besides the point. But at the same time, I have found myself deleting footage because my gameplay wasn't so good. So, the thing that I'm doing as a courtesy should be, presentable. And that's all, honestly, what I want. I want a video that's presentable. I don't really care about anything else. If it's watchable, that's all I want. It doesn't have to be perfect, and obviously it can't be because, it's a live commentary. I'm not editing it at all. Yeah, I don't know. I get a little melodramatic over these things, and I know it doesn't really matter. Like, I've had multiple takes that were good enough, but just like, I just didn't feel one way or another about them. I just want to be happy with it, Maybe that's asking a little too much or something like that. But it's not just like the gameplay and stuff. Sometimes I find myself getting quieter as I try to think of what to say next. And so like there's this prolonged silence that shouldn't exist. Or maybe I start talking about something. Like I found this happening. I found it where I've started on topic A, and then topic A reminds me of B. And so I go on to talk about B, but by the time that I finish B, I'm like, wait, actually, you don't really get the context of that because you need C. So then I say, hold B in your back pocket for a second as I visit C. And then I talk about C for a while. And then I finish C, I go back to B. And then by the time I finish B again, I completely, like, A is gone. It's already been like a 10-minute conversation about B and C when really what I wanted to talk about was A. And maybe it's just a problem where I just get distracted and talk about something else. But I do also want to talk about B at some point. And when else would I talk about B? I don't know. And so that's the problems that I'm finding. And maybe it's something else. Maybe too, like maybe I voice cracked and I stammered too much. Maybe just anything really. And so, we're just going to try again. We're just going to try again until we get it. And I don't care how long it takes, honestly. Okay, sorry. With a almost 8-minute intro, I'm ready to start talking. So, I'm going to pretend to be you for a minute. Hey, Carson. How are you? What are you doing? I'm doing good. And, I'm doing a little bit of everything that I've been doing so far. I finally started on a 16th chapter for my book. That's gorgeous. I just finished chapter 15, started chapter 16 yesterday. And, I'm getting to that point where I'm, like, very, very content with it. I'm very happy, and I'm, like, moving on towards the end now, which is insane. I've done an incredible amount of work on this year, and I'm looking back at it, and I'm just, like, so over the moon with it. I won't be able to quite finish it this year, which is unfortunate. If I could finish all of this stuff in 1 year, I would be so happy, but, you can only do so many things in 1 year, so I don't mind pushing this until 2026. The project will probably definitely be done in 2026 at some point, but ultimately, I was basically stumped for a little while on how to bridge the middle and the end, because I knew how I wanted the first act to happen, and I knew how I wanted the third act to happen, or the fourth act, or whatever. And I just didn't really know where I wanted, like, the middle parts to go, I found myself getting new ideas halfway through the book, and I started, like, changing up some things that I didn't think I would ever change up. But I did, and I'm very happy with it still. And so that's very interesting to me. I'm finding out how I would bridge, the beginning and the end, and that's the hardest part for me, which is kind of interesting because I was talking to my friend's wife, Rebecca, and she said that when she was in middle school and stuff, she would write, like, mystery stories, like fantasy mysteries, and I was just like, oh, that's very interesting. Like, what were they about? And then she told me what some of them were about, and I'm sorry, but I can't remember what it was about, and I haven't read them, so obviously I don't remember what it was about. She wouldn't let me read them. But yeah, so I'm like, yeah. I told her basically the exact same thing about my writing. Like, from my process and how it goes, I find that writing the middle is hard, because I typically start with the premise and I know how I want that premise to resolve, but I don't know how to get to the resolution all the time in a way that feels satisfactory. And she was like, I find it the exact opposite. Starting the story is hard and ending the story is hard, but you know, the middle portions are where I cook. And I'm like, really? How so? And she's just like, well, my process, I typically start with a scene and then everything moves on from the, like I write the story around the scene. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? How does a human do that? Which is it's kind of funny. Not to say that that's a bad way of writing. It's just something that I can't even imagine. I don't know how do you start from a scene? Because how do you know what the characters in the scene really mean, or why they matter if you know, you only imagine them in a certain context? When you say that you write around the scene, it makes me think that like this scene is not like a premise unto itself. It's like a fight scene or some kind of climax to the story or something like that. It's like some kind of like pivotal moment rather than like a call to action, or rather than really any other fundamental part of a story. It's just, you know, it's something else entirely. And how do you start with that? That's so alien to me, but it's so fascinating at the exact same time. And I really want to read them now because I want to know if it's good stuff. But obviously, like, since I've made a kind of hobby out of, you know, looking at people's like stuff, it's weird. It's just weird. People don't really want me to read their work, and I don't blame Rebecca for not letting me read it, because first of all, she wrote it when she was in middle school, and like, who wants to have, you know, me read their stuff from middle school? I don't know. It's you know, I don't blame her. I don't blame her for not letting me see it. Although I do really want to read it and just like see what's up. But further than that, I've also thought of 2 more books that I want to write, and I am so excited to start on one of them. I've just got to finish the one that I'm working on now. I actually wanted to make a video, like one more video on the book that I'm working on now, and just kind of do one more write with me thing, but I don't think that I can actually do that without spoiling some of what I've done recently. I don't have a whole lot more to say. I just got to wrap up the story now, which is kind of sad, because I really wanted to do one more video just to like intrigue you guys just a little bit more, maybe build a little bit more hype. But you know, it's, you know, this is how it is. Just how it is. I'll if I can publish this book, hopefully that'll be that. I can make a video on you know, my publishing journey and all that, and then I'll make some write with me's on like the new books that I'm writing. That'll be fantastic. I love the idea of that, and I already have a lot of ideas for what I'm gonna do on my next book. And speaking of videos, I have one more video that I want to get out this year. And if you've been keeping up with me, you should know it's you know, my favorite album of all time, the last piece of the puzzle to my album sheet videos. And yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of research recently, on top of like doing some prep work for it. That is not fair. Doing some prep work for this video. I've drawn some backgrounds, done some character designs, and all that jazz. And you know, I've also been watching videos. I've been trying to figure out what other people have to say about this album. I've been reading reviews, and I don't think I've seen anybody say what I plan on saying in this video. I haven't seen anybody do anything remotely like what I'm gonna do, because it's not gonna be like a standard review. And in fact, I'm probably not even gonna give you the like rating out of 10 that I gave it on the album sheet. Just know that it's nigh perfect. I've got the hiccups a little. Excuse me. Clearing my throat real quick. Gotta breathe. All that junk, you know. And so, like, I'm not even going to give you a number. Just know that in my mind, this is a nigh perfect album. And, you know, me having something completely brand new to say, or something that seems brand new, it makes me very hopeful. And I hope that I'm not getting my hopes too far up, because, you know, I found myself disappointed at like how some videos perform. I found myself pleasantly surprised too. Like, for example, given how Elijah's video, the one that I did for our channel friend Elijah, on his story Fighting Water, I was kind of disappointed to see that it like barely hit like 100 views, and so I expected similar views from like everybody else's story that I looked at. I looked at that one called The Six Senses, starring that character Monica. I looked at Elijah's friend Robin's. I'm blanking on the name. I'm totally blanking on the name, even though I really enjoyed it. By the Rules. Sorry. I was really expecting those two to do similarly to Elijah's, but they like doubled or tripled the view count, which was kind of bizarre to me. So sometimes I find myself pleasantly surprised, and sometimes I find myself unpleasantly a little bit disappointed in how a video performs. And so I hope that I'm not getting my hopes too far up by thinking like, since this is something that seems brand new that nobody has talked about, maybe it'll do well. But who knows what the YouTube algorithm will decide is going to get popular or not. Sometimes it's just random. Like my first video on my channel, I gave it such like a vague, like kind of unassuming name. I literally just called it "What Am I?" and that's one of my highest viewed videos. And I was very, very proud of it. It took me like a month to create. So like I was very happy about that, but I don't know. It's a bit amateurish. It's a bit amateurish in its editing, and I tried though. I really did try, and I guess that's what people thought about it. Maybe people shared it a lot more than my other videos. Maybe some people don't find that a lot of my other videos are shareable. Something like that. I don't know. It could be anything. It could be any reason that things are not always consistent, it seems. So yeah, what else? I feel like that's all that I've been working on. Other than the fact that I actually did get a job. I got a job, which is, I could have also started with that. That would also be a cool thing, because that's such a huge change to my life and my schedule and stuff. And I almost feel the need to apologize to everybody because, I still got stories to read in my Carson's submission email, and I still have so many other things to do. And now I'm spreading myself even thinner on all of these things. I think I only have 2 more stories to read in my submission email, luckily. But I promised these people a reaction, to their story. I promised them a thorough read through, and so far I haven't delivered. And it makes me feel a little cruddy, but at the same time, I'm one guy, A lot of these things have been very, very lengthy. And I've gotten to some people before others, and for that I can only say I'm sorry. I'll get to you, I promise. You just got to give me some time. And it doesn't help that this video, like, I try, and like my only like time is spent, just deleting footage and playing the game, trying to get better footage. It doesn't really make me feel that good. But yeah, I got a job, and now that's taken up a lot more of my time. I was hired as a full-time associate, but I want to get my hours cut to part-time. But since I was taken on as a full-time associate off the rip, I've got to work there for a couple months just to, be able to renegotiate, which is unfortunate, but I'll survive. It doesn't matter to me that much. I like my job. So now you're asking me, so what are you doing? So basically, for those of you who are uninitiated with me, if that's any of you, basically what's going on is I went to college for computer science and I minored in mathematics, but towards the end, right before I was about to graduate, I realized, I don't really care about computer science or mathematics that much. I have a minor interest in both, but I'm missing too much math education for me to care that much. COVID basically had my entire school canceled for, almost an entire year. A half year of school is just gone. And I was taking geometry and trigonometry the same year in high school. I had like a combined class, and I was upset because I didn't learn either of them. And so I barely squeaked my way through calculus with B's, and B's that I didn't even fully earn. And so I realized just how much math I don't know, and how like computer science is kind of math based. And like, even though I'm good at computer science and like problem solving like that, and I can always look up the math that I need to know for any given project, I just don't enjoy it. It's kind of dull, and you sit at a desk, and even though like even with writing, I don't always feel comfortable just sitting down and working on something for hours and hours and hours at a time at a desk. I need to stand up and walk around and stuff like that. I need to take in something different for a while and get some physical activity and stimuli. And so, with that being said, I decided to get a job at Walmart. And look, some people would be like, "Dude, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Okay, you've already got your job, like basically lined up for you. Just get a job in computer science and earn a little bit more money, pay off those student loans, and then quit that job and do something that you like, right? At least do the computer science job until your like creative career can kick off and that sort of thing. And I'm like, and yeah, but at the same time, I would rather avoid computer science, like in total. Like I don't want to do that. And I would rather do a job that most people see as back-breaking and like blue collar, rather than something that's more white collar or like anything like that. Simply because it's just it's a better fit for me, honestly. It really does feel like a better fit. I like my job. And so basically what they have me doing is I'm in the back room, and a truck rolls up. They get one of us guys to throw the truck, it's called. And basically what that means is that's taking all of the freight off and putting it on the line so that somebody can push it down the line, the pusher, and then everybody else takes the freight off the line and puts it on the correct pallet, sorts it where it needs to go. And then when it comes nighttime, we wheel the pallets out to the front room, like out into the sales floor, and bada bing, bada boom, the other stocking team can put it on the shelves where they go. Excuse me. And so my job is not hard. I can get into a rhythm. I can learn it, and then easy peasy, right? And that's really what I want from a job. I was talking to one of my coworkers. His name is Robert, and he was telling me that he really can't stand a job like that. I'm like, why not? And he was like, well, because when you really think about it, you're not learning anything new. You're not getting any forward momentum. You're doing the exact same thing day in, day out. You're happy with that? I'm just like, I'm probably more comfortable like learning my job than doing something new. Like, I'm like, if it were between learning something new and doing something new every single day and just getting into the groove of things, what would you take? He's just like, I would take doing something new every single day. I'm like, even though you're constantly doing something new and like you never do the thing you learned again. And he's just like, yeah, honestly. And I'm like, let me give you my thoughts on that, but like in the form of like a story. And he's like, okay. I'm like, so here's the story. The story is that I was talking to like some family and stuff and like friends. I'll start with my friend Nick, because he had the most like opinionated like reaction to what I'm about to say. Basically, I was talking to them about like sleeping and like that sort of thing. I find myself getting annoyed that I have to sleep, because I often want to work or chill out and play the game, and I don't want to have to be totally asleep just to recuperate. I would much rather be awake. And so I've put it like this to people. I've said, I wish that God had the foresight to say, like, okay, food, water, sleep. You guys need two of the three, and if you're missing one, make it up with one of the other two. So if I'm missing too much sleep, I can just eat a little more. If I'm missing too much food, I can just, go to bed. You know? Why do I need to input calories and everything and then sleep and waste calories and all that sort of thing? And that's so bad. That's so annoying. And so he's just like, right, I hear you. I'm just like, so my friend Nick, he basically said, well, you still sleep, don't you? And I'm like, well, of course I do. What's the alternative? Find me an alternative to sleeping and I'll do it. And he's just like, you could just deprive yourself of sleep. I'm just like, yeah, but that's not doing me any good. He's like, exactly. It's just something that you've got to do, right? And Robert's just like, exactly, man. You've just got to do the same boring old job over and over, and it makes you unhappy. I'm just like, but think about it. Think about it. There are so many people on Earth comfortable going to sleep. And he's just like, yeah. And I'm like, why can't you just sit down and think of your work as going to sleep? I'm sure when you get home from work, you lay down and you're like, hands behind your head, and you're like getting comfortable going to bed. He's just like, yeah, I do that. And I'm just like, yeah, so think of work kind of like sleep. It's like a routine thing that you have to do to stay alive, right? And he's just like, I'm like, that's how I view it. And, I would rather be able to shut my brain off and keep it schmoving, like pretty much indefinitely. That's how I would want to work my job. I wouldn't want to have to do something brand new, like every day or almost ever. I would rather just learn my thing and then let it just play from there. Easy style. Easy style. And he's just like, I never thought of it like that. I really like that outlook. Let me think on that. And he hasn't gotten back to me yet. But, I was just like, that's how old people talk. Old people are like, let me tell you a story. And then they tell you a story. And then, like, by the time you're at the end of the story, you've gotten so invested that you don't want to argue. And so maybe he just didn't want to argue. But I do get the feeling, because he's a very honest guy. He's not like a liar. He doesn't try to get out of things. He's not like conniving or snakish. Whoa! Oh, I get all of them? Whoa. That's so cool. I don't think I've ever seen this before. I don't need this anymore. Okay. So yeah, I was basically talking to him about all of that stuff, and I view work as kind of like sleep and that sort of thing, and that's one reason that I love my work. And a lot of people did not want me to get this job because they thought it was going to be super back-breaking labor, like, oh, you're going to be lifting all day, you're going to be like getting too much like you're going to be like throwing your back out, and you're going to be causing like a bunch of like problems for yourself in the future, blah 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 blah. I'm just like, no. The heaviest thing I ever had to lift so far is like cat food. And like, I'm an able-bodied, working-aged man. I can handle some cat food. It's not that hard. I got it. Don't worry about me so much. Okay? And ultimately, the sentence, like, the you're going to be blowing out your back or whatever, or I shouldn't say that. I should say you're going to be throwing out your back, rather, is ultimately just a way of them saying something along the lines of, like, oh, you're not doing what I want you to do, You're not really, you're not working up to your standard. I've heard it said before to me that you're wasting what God has given you. And I find that so annoying because I don't feel like I was given much, and I feel like what I was given was kind of minimal. So how come it can't be something along the lines of, like, you're wasting what God helped you achieve? How come it's got to be outright handed to me? It kind of negates my role in the matter. Like, I didn't, like, study for 4 years out of college or anything like that. Like, I didn't turn in all my assignments. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of annoying to me when people say stuff like you're wasting what God has given you. It's just like the hell I am. The hell I am. No, I'm not. It's just like what God gave me was a life, and so now I'm doing what I want with it. How is that a waste? That's not a waste. You see it as a waste. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to rehash all of that stuff again, because I've said all of that before, and you know, it's a bit of a downer, honestly. I'll keep it 100%. It's a bit of a downer to say stuff like that, and to stew on that sort of thing. And I find myself stewing every now and then, and I don't even mean to. But whatever, you know. If somebody wants to believe that I was utterly handed something, let them believe it, I guess. Even if I hold that it just frankly is not true. Don't care. Don't care. Not my problem. And you know what's funny? That sort of thing makes me feel so alien anyways, even when I say stuff like I don't care, because like it almost makes me feel like I've got to shut up. Like I've got to stop trying to explain myself. But I don't want to stop trying to explain myself, because like some people genuinely do try to understand me. Like now that I have this job, if I have like a harder day, or like something leaves me a little more tired than, you know, maybe yesterday was easier than today is, I don't feel like around certain people I can absolutely say today was harder than yesterday. I don't feel like around certain people I can say much of anything other than like the good parts of my day, because if I say something negative about my job at all, even though overall it's a good steady job, the pay is nice, all of that stuff, even though I firmly hold that for the most part it is a good job for me, if I say something that is negative, somebody will be like, I told you so. Do you want to quit now? Do you want to quit now? How about that? How about you quit and do what I want you to do? And that's not what I want to hear, first of all, and it's not what I want them to say, and it's not how I feel. Like, even if I complain about a certain thing, I should be allowed to complain about a certain thing, but still think that overall it is good, you know? Just because it's not perfect doesn't mean that, like, it's bad. It just means that, like, oh man, I wish this one thing was different. But nothing's perfect. Nothing is perfect. But people want to act like there is a perfect spot for you all the time. There is not. And that's why I often find myself feeling a little bit alien. And that's not even to say that that's a bad thing. Who's to say feeling alien is a bad thing? Although sometimes it does feel like a bad thing. For example, a lot of my coworkers are too honest and very open, and they're not afraid to say the things that they're thinking of, which is very, very bizarre. It's very bizarre. And I don't always, how do I explain it even? Basically, there's this one guy named Devin. Devin is one of the new hires with me. And, you know, he's fresh out of high school. And he was hired at the exact same time as me. And basically what happened was we were talking in our, like, computer training module room. And he was asking me, so what are you doing here? I'm just like, you know, hopefully working. And he starts laughing. He's like, right. No, I mean, like, basically, what brings you to Walmart? Did you choose Walmart, or did Walmart choose you? And I'm like, yeah, basically, I gave him the whole spiel. You know, I went to college and I didn't really like what I studied, blah, 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 blah. Here I am. And so then he starts saying, yeah, I tried to go to community college to learn a trade, but the trade that I wanted to learn, I'll be honest, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, and honestly, I couldn't get the help that I need. I'm like, why not? And he's just like, well, because it was supposed to be a classroom of 30, but, you know, there were 50 people in this classroom. So I was like, okay, well, that's going to be too much, like, competition in this area. I can't get exactly what I need, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm like, huh. No, nonsense. You seem like a pretty smart guy. You seem smart enough to know, hey, there's going to be competition, lots of competition in this area for this one trade that I'm learning. That shows some kind of like self-awareness, and he's just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just like, yeah, and honestly, you can always go back and learn a trade. Like, nothing's stopping you. Nothing is really stopping you. He's just like, true that, true that. He's like, do you think I could get into college? I'm just like, oh, that depends. What was your GPA in high school? He's just like, 1.6. I'm like, whew. And from then on, I didn't know what to say. I'm gonna keep it real. I really did not know what to say because, like, I just met the guy. I knew this guy for all of like an hour, 2 hours maybe, and so I didn't know really what to even think because so far he didn't present himself like he was stupid. He seems pretty humble. He looked like a hard worker, and he was very receptive to like feedback and stuff, and like everything, and like he seems self-aware based on like what he was saying. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, what would you even study? Just trying to like be nice. I'm just like, yeah, what would you even study? And he's just like, yeah, true that, true that. I don't know what I would study. I'm just like, honestly, you just need to stick to the trade thing. I could see you welding. You could really learn to weld, or like carpentry or bricklaying. Maybe an electrician. He's like, yeah, welding maybe. I'm like, phew. I'm like wiping my forehead. That's what I mean. It's just a little too honest. It's just like, please don't tell me that sort of thing. What if I was malicious? What if I was like the kind of like evil, vindictive soul that would like try to paint you as a weird person in front of all the like other people so I seem more normal by proxy? What if that's how I was? What if I was like vindictive and evil, yo? And so and it's not just Devin. It's not just Devin. Some of the other people make me feel a little alien too. For example, there's this guy named Quincy, and Quincy floors me. He's a really funny dude. But I remember I was just on my way, like to the break room, and we sit down and we all start eating together. Me, Devin, this guy named Kyle, and Quincy, and we're chilling out, and I'm like talking about something, and then almost in unison while I'm talking, they all get up to start heading out. I'm just like, oh, I guess we're leaving. And so I grab my hoodie and I put it on, and we go outside where it's cold, and like on our way out the door, Quincy turns around. He's just like, whoa, what are you doing? I'm like, what? He's just like, nah, go back inside, young blood, go back inside. I'm like, young blood? He's just like, yeah, go back inside. I'm like, why? He's just like, you're too young for this. I'm like, brother, I am older than you. And he is like, yeah, but like, you know what we're doing? I'm like, no. Turns out they were just going outside to smoke. And there's another thing. I don't smoke and I don't drink. And despite being one of the older guys, I'm like, one of the only people that doesn't smoke or drink. Devin smokes. Pretty much all of the younger guys smoke, which is kind of disheartening, because like it makes me feel like I'm missing out on something, even though I don't have any like inclination to smoke at all. So like they're all just chilling out smoking, and there I am just sitting around listening to them and watching them share a vape. That's whatever. I don't care that much. And it just all adds to an atmosphere that makes you feel a little otherly. And there's this guy named Nick too. Nick makes me feel very otherly because he's just a weird soul. And upon hearing about this Nick character, my brother actually said, Carson, you should make like a character study video on your coworkers. And I thought it was a funny idea, but I don't think I can do it without being mean. And I don't want to be mean. And I don't want to seem like I'm making fun of these people, because honestly, they're good people. The way that I've described it to people is that even though they're not nice, they're very brotherly. They're the kind of people that will like pick you up and smack you around and beat you up a little bit and like bust your balls over like the stupid stuff. But at the same time, if you are struggling, like noticeably struggling, they are not above helping you figure out what is going wrong and helping you fix it. Like, and they're inclined to be very like helpful about it, but not just helpful, but also like humble about it. And it leads to not only to an atmosphere that's like nice, but also to an atmosphere that like I can get a little bit cozy behind. I love that. I really do. I really love feeling kind of cozy around these people. Even though like at times I feel like I can't really relate to them, or they can't really relate to me. And so this Nick character, he's a little weird. Today he said something that was very strange to me. Like we were just on the line doing what we needed to do, and it's the funniest thing in the entire world, honestly. We were chilling, and I give him a box, and everybody else was like making fun of him for something that he did, and they're like, "Come on, Nick, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do this, do this, do this." And he was just like, "Yeah, whatever." That's how he talks, and I'm just like, "Don't listen to them, Nick. I think you're a good guy." And he goes, "I wish a woman would say that to me." I'm like, oh. And he's the kind of guy who will kind of like, he'll give you a roundabout answer to something instead of just talk to you like a normal human, which is kind of funny. Like instead of you'll ask him, "Hey Nick, how old are you?" And instead of giving you a straight up answer, he will be like, "I was born the same year that this movie came out." And then you're like, "Great. When did that movie come out?" And he'll be like, "Look it up." Not because he's mean, but because he's just like, that's the way he makes conversation, because he's like an older guy. He was born in 1979, so he's like almost 50 years old, doing some pocket math right quick. Like I don't know exactly how old he is, because he's never explained that to me. And, this is the first time that I've ever had to think about it. I'm just like, wow, 1979, that was a long time ago. And he'd be like, yep. I'm like, America was way different back then, huh? He's just like, yep. And so, and that's it. I've never asked him what his actual age is, and I'm not doing the math. And so it's so funny, because I'm like, why don't you just give me a straight up answer, man? But whatever. It's just like, all of these things make him seem a little like weird and like that sort of thing. And yeah, that all of that just adds to an air that makes me feel a little alien. And I find the same thing amongst my family members and like friends too. Like I was talking to my sister, my oldest sister, and my brother about some of this stuff. I didn't get into all of it, and I won't get into all of it here. But I was freaking out a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna die, so I'm just gonna restart. But I won't get into all of it. But basically, I was freaking out for a little bit, like getting self-conscious and working myself into the weeds, chewing the fat in my own head about like conversations that I had had in the past. Because to me, I noticed that a lot more of my conversations, especially in the last couple of months, were only focusing on like philosophy and religion and art and politics and recent events and stuff like that. And they were almost always disagreements or arguments or like introspection or like something like that. And I don't always want to talk about those things, I have no problem arguing, but like when the way that I put it to some people is that it felt like conversation moved unnaturally around me. It felt manufactured. It felt like people had an idea of what they wanted to talk about with me, and then they would try to make it happen. And so I felt almost like a I felt almost like a like a bot, like something to prompt into speaking about a certain topic, which made me feel kind of lonely, And I'll give you an example to show you that this particular one is a bit of a delusion, right? This one, like I realize now that I was being like a little bit silly. Basically, at Thanksgiving. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody, since that just passed. Didn't say that before. But basically, Thanksgiving Day, I had a lot of people at my house, more so than I normally do. And that felt beautiful because, I don't always have a lot of people at my house. I even had a girl there that I didn't recognize, that I didn't know. And so it was nice talking to people that I had never met before, you know? And I wish I had more of that because I'm a rather social creature, I've said. Even though like I tend to like get in my own head about social stuff sometimes and I get a little bit anxious. But I enjoy having company. That's the thing. I don't want to live somewhere where I don't have any company. And so basically my dad's friend was talking about how he had personally seen like demons and angels and like specters and spirits and ghosts and all that sort of thing. And I found that very funny because I'm like, you liar. No, you haven't. And maybe he really does believe he has, but I get the feeling that like specters and ghosts and poltergeists and big feet and abominable snowmen and chupacabras only show themselves to people who are, you know, a little bit eccentric or delusional or have something to sell. You know, I never find that like the average Joe sees something that they can't really explain or something supernatural like that and that they can pinpoint it. Because if somebody who is like kind of average and didn't believe in those things to begin with saw one of those things, they would try to figure out what it is rather than announce what they know it is. Because like, you know, crack addicts see like an RV Breaking Bad fans in general, not just crack addicts or like meth dealers or anything, but like people who just watch Breaking Bad see an RV and they'd be like, "Oh, Walter White. I saw Walter White at the store." It's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And obviously, those people say it as a joke, right? But like this guy was totally serious. I saw demons before, and I'm like, no, you haven't. And so I was talking to my mom a few days later, and I was just like, I found that so funny, and she was just like, I didn't, because like the way she saw it is that, you know, he was aiming it at certain people in the room who aren't rather religious or who practice religion in a different kind of way. And so I'm standing there with my mom, and I'm like, yeah, how bizarre, right? And she's just like, no, it's not bizarre. I'm like, it's not? She's like, no, I believe everything he said. I'm just like, then what's the issue? She's just like, the issue is you should never say it. I'm like, why? And she's just like, well, because think about how that makes us look. And so then a few days later after that, I'm talking to some other friends of mine. I'm talking to Nick and Rebecca, and I'm like, hey guys, I thought this was a funny thing that happened, and I tell them that exact story. I'm like, I think it's kind of weird that, you know, you would want to suppress what you believe to fundamentally be the truth just to uphold some kind of like appearance. But like, think about how many people in history were silenced because the truth wasn't palatable. For example, like people were burned at the stake for information, you know? You get like Jesus even. Like let's play the religious angle. Jesus was killed because the information he had was not convenient. Basically he was just like, don't like worship God for money, and you know, if you really want to be a total follower, you kind of got to be an ascetic. You got to like get rid of all of your worldly possessions to follow me and all that sort of thing. And people didn't really like that. You know, the people were expecting like an actual conqueror to destroy Rome on behalf of like the Jewish population. And so since he wasn't convenient enough, they killed him. You know? And so like, why on earth would you ever be like, no, it's the truth, but don't say it? It doesn't make any sense to me, especially if you're religious. And you know, then the conversation turns a little bit. And it made me feel like it was a little bit manufactured because Rebecca's just like, I don't know, Carson. I've seen some freaky stuff out of the corner of my eyes, like when I was still living in my parents' house and my room was in the basement. I thought I saw like demons and stuff, and I'm just like, you don't think that was like a you know, a sleep paralysis thing or something? Like your brain was playing tricks on you, like you're already like in a like space where you're willing to be scared, like in the dark or something. And to me there was an explanation, but then I realized, what are we talking about? Why are we talking about this? Because I thought the point was like, why on earth would you ever suppress information? Now we're talking about like whether or not demons exist. It's just like, I already know demons don't. You already know they do. It's just like, we're gonna disagree on that. And plus, we've already had this conversation before. It felt like, I want to have this conversation again. That's what it felt like. Like, I think I can disprove you in some way. It almost felt like like I was just on the back foot now. And so I was like, you don't think it was like sleep paralysis or something? She's like, no. What do you think about like the story of Job? And that felt like it came out of a little bit of nowhere too. And I'm like, what about it? And she's just like, well, doesn't the story of Job kind of prove the existence of like spiritual forces in the material world? And I'm just like, look, the way that I see it is the story of Job's actual events kind of just preach like obedience. It doesn't like ultimately it kind of paints God as like an egomaniac. And so you either get that it's a parable with a very like skewed, roundabout, maybe lost in translation meaning, or it's an utter fabrication and it's not real. And she's like, why do you say that? And so now I'm talking about this. Now I'm talking about the story of Job. But before I even get to talk about the story of Job, Nick goes, "'Cause I believe it." He makes fun of me. And so I'm like, wait, chill out. And he starts laughing like a madman. He's like hooting and hollering, and I'm like, wait. He's just like, Carson, wait. I realize that you don't believe in the Bible, but I believe in the Bible, the whole Bible, and nothing but the Bible. And I'm like, Nick, wait, what? He's like, what? I'm like, that's not even what gets me. He's just like, what gets you? I'm just like, what gets me is that, think about what you actually said. She said, what do you think about the story of Job? And I'm like, I don't think it's necessarily like true or accurate. And she's like, why do you say that? And you're like, 'cause I believe it. But like, what am I supposed to say in that situation? Was I supposed to lie? And he starts laughing. He starts laughing even harder. And I'm like, what are you laughing about? And it pissed me off at the time because like I felt so far away from what I wanted to talk about initially. What like I thought the focus of the conversation was on, which was how absurd it is to not say something that you believe is the truth. And now I'm talking about the existence of demons, and now I'm talking about, I'm just like defending myself in general, like with no particular topic in mind. And so I'm like, you're making fun of me for proclaiming something is the truth when Rebecca asked me, what do you believe is the truth? Like, was I supposed to lie there? We're having like a real conversation. I'll sometimes lie for fun. I really will. Like my friend Joey once asked Nick, what is a pancreas? Because Nick came into the call with an inside joke that only he understood, where he just shouted, my pancreas don't work, really loudly in his microphone. None of us got it, still don't get it, won't tell us. That's the joke. That's why it's funny. And so Joey's like, what's the pancreas? And I'm like, I'm about to lie to this brother. I'm about to lie to him. I'm like, you see, Joey, the pancreas is believed to be a vestigial organ, meaning left over from our days as monkeys before we evolved, when we used to chew on grass and we needed to digest it, otherwise we would just clog up and die. And so he took that as 100% truth. He's just like, I see, and he's like rubbing his chin. And so then Nick's just like, Carson, why are you lying to him? So like, I absolutely will lie for fun, but if we're having like a real conversation about like religion and stuff, what would be my incentive to lie for no reason? And so, and not only that, what he actually gets on me for is not what I believe, but for the simple act of believing something. He's like, I say it's true because I believe it. It's just like, do you not believe anything? One of the most fundamental human behaviors is believing stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why on earth would you make fun of me for believing something? And, you know, all of that made me feel like a total stranger, like a total alien that didn't know how to communicate to anybody. I felt so misunderstood. And after I talked to, like, my sister and my brother, I realized, oh, I'm actually just freaking out a bit over nothing. Because honestly, what happened? Honestly, what happened was Rebecca heard me talking about like demons and how I thought it was silly, and she wanted to linger on that. It's just like, it didn't come out of complete nowhere, even though to me it felt like it did. It's just like a comprehension thing, and not like a comprehension problem, just like, I comprehended that he talked about this thing, and maybe she comprehended that, the conversation about like truth and suppressing the truth for appearances is over. I already made my point. She agrees with me on that. What would be the point of continuing? So maybe she moves on. I'm just like, yeah, you know what? That actually sounds right. I think I was overreacting. And so then like I kind of gave up like what I said before. And, that was that. And it happens more times than just those two. Like I constantly find myself just not saying much or trying to like guess what's happening a few steps in the future so that like I can just keep my head above water in conversations that I feel like are spiraling out of control, or stuff like that, or moving on without me. Just so I can like prepare to be on the back foot defending myself for like one of the most basic human things. But you know something? The last time that I really, really enjoyed a conversation was actually with Joey's girlfriend, Camilla. And, it's a little bit weird, the position that I'm in. And this is going to sound a little egotistical, I realize that. But, I mean, it's just an observation I've made, and I don't know how else to put it. The way that I'm seeing it, the people that I'm, like, somewhat close to, but don't know all that well, kind of are fascinated by me, it seems. Like, for example, I've never met Camilla in real life, and I don't talk to her almost ever. I talk to her pretty much only when Joey is around, like when I'm on the phone with Joey, or same thing with like Rebecca. With Rebecca, Nick's wife, I find that I only talk to her when Nick calls me or if I'm hanging out with Nick. I never hang out with her one-on-one, and I never hang out with Camilla one-on-one. Nor should I, because they are my friends, wives, and girlfriends, and that would be kind of, like, weird, and I would not be comfortable with that, right? And I assure you, neither would Joey or Nick, because, I don't want to make anybody, like... But, like, anyways, the last conversation that I really, really, really enjoyed, other than, like, with my brother, was, like, with, Camilla. She approached me out of nowhere, and she does that every now and then. She'll be like, Joey, let's call Carson. Let's see what Carson's doing. Let's see what's up. And then they'll see what's up, and then they're like, okay, bye. And then they'll go back to hanging out. But, like, for me, it was very weird because like she approached me out of the blue with Joey not around, and she was just like, Carson, I want you to read verse 52 of Song of Myself by Walt Whitman. And I like Walt Whitman. He's got this reputation for being like this romantic dude, and he's got like ideas of like human grandeur in the eyes of the universe and stuff like that. He's very loud and proud about his place in the universe, and I love that sort of thing. And so I was like, yeah, give me a few days to read it because I'm a little busy working on something else right now, and I want to give that all of my time before like I really dive into this. And the way that I work is I just need some time to stew on stuff. I can't just like move quickly between things that I read. And so she's like, yeah, take your time. I'm like, okay, cool. And so then I read it, and I was very moved by it. I loved it because it seems so outside of typical Walt Whitman things. One of my favorite things that Walt Whitman has ever said is, do I contradict myself? So be it. If I contradict myself, it's because I contain multitudes. That's what he says. And I love that. I love how in a way, it's a bit of ego cope. Like, I don't have to worry about being consistent, but at the exact same time, it's just like, I'm a human. If I make mistakes, so be it. It's just like, I have multiple feelings. I have multiple thoughts and ideas. They clash with each other. I can't be 100% consistent all the time. And so, like, he's a very humanistic guy and very, like, romantic in that front. But this one felt so different. I'm actually going to read it real quick. Let me see. Song of Myself, verse 52. The spotted hawk swoops by and accuses me. He complains of my gab and my loitering. And I, too, am not a bit tamed. I, too, am untranslatable. I sound my barbaric yap over the roofs of the world. The last scud of the day holds back for me. It flings my likeness after the rest, and true as any on the shadowed wilds. It coaxes me to the vapor and the dusk, and I depart as air, and I shake my white locks at the runaway sun, and I effuse my flesh in eddies and drift it in lacy jags. I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass that I love. If you want me again, look for me under your boot soles. You will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be good health to you nevertheless, and filter and fiber your blood. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Missing me one place, search another. I stop somewhere waiting for you. And that's actually something that has stuck with me, because when I first told Camilla my thoughts, she utterly disagreed with me. She was just like, nope, typical Walt Whitman. He's very, like, proud of his place in the universe and all that stuff. I'm just like, how do you get that? And she's just like, well, because the spotted hawk, like, comes in and starts, like, basically roasting him. And then immediately after, he compares himself to the spotted hawk, like he's a big, beautiful creature anyways. And he's a very individualistic guy. And so he just, like, surrenders himself unto nature and the universe because that's his spot in the world. And I'm like, I actually see the exact opposite. And she's just like, what do you see? I'm like, what I see is this spotted hawk character swoops by and immediately is just like, you stand around and you talk all the time. And then he immediately admits, I'm kind of wild and I don't often make sense. Like, here, the words I too am is not a comparison to the spotted hawk, but is a way to say kind of, also this is true. Like, he's adding on to what the spotted hawk had to say about him. He says, I too am not a bit tamed, I am too untranslatable, and I sound my barbaric yap over the roofs of the world. The word barbaric there, barbaric often has a negative connotation. The fall of Rome was because the barbarians were at the gate. You call somebody like a barbaric Philistine if they're, like, meat-headed, or if they're, like, uncultured, or if they're stupid, or if they're violent. You don't really hear somebody say barbarian in the term of, like, individual. Barbarian is like a group. The barbars, and so I was just like, that word barbaric kind of hints to me that he's kind of unhappy with himself. Like, he's down on himself. And not only that, he says, you will hardly know who I am or what I mean, but I shall be good health to you nevertheless, and filter and fiber your blood. And to me, what that means is, like, he feels like he cannot be understood. He even uses the word, I am too untranslatable. He feels like he's always misunderstood, like he doesn't quite fit in. And so he just kind of, like, sinks into nature, aka his, like, writing and just poems and all that stuff. And he even says that, like, he can be seen pretty much everywhere. So it's such a weird place to be. It's like he's complaining that he can basically be found anywhere. He's not unique, but at the same time he feels totally alone. And I maybe I'm projecting meaning where it doesn't exist there. But that's honestly how I've felt recently. And I was just like, it's so weird that she brings me this poem that could very well have that meaning. That's not like a totally out there interpretation of those lines. That's just how I interpreted it, and I thought it was a very beautiful poem, and it's so outside of what Walt Whitman typically writes about, you know. And so we talked about that for all of like 15-20 minutes through text, and you know, I was very happy with it, and it was something that I liked to talk about, something that we were both passionate about. She had read it and then wrote like an essay on it, so she was probably more versed in like the general consensus of what he's talking about than I am, right? Since I had given it literally just like the once or twice over and just thought about it for like a minute before I said anything. But yeah, that was the last time that I really enjoyed a conversation and was able to talk about something without it feeling like it was going to turn into something that I didn't want it to, or that it was slipping away from me, or that it felt like anything other than what it was, just a good conversation. And you know, I stopped feeling like the man that the rats talk to, you know. Oh yeah, I bet you forgot about that. That was a whole hour ago. Yeah, basically, here's the point that I was getting at. Here's why I found that poem that I read you at first interesting and relevant. I find that the guy is being approached by the rats who are basically telling him, you know, come join us. We have a place where you may belong. But for some reason that this guy has, whether it be real or imagined, he can't join them for some reason. Perhaps it's a physical ailment or problem of his, or perhaps it's something totally in his head. Like, who's to say that he can't fit under the tracks to feel it like a warm thunderstorm? Who's to say that he can't join them? Because they live forever, remember? They live forever and they love to live, so who's to say he can't join them? Why can't he live forever and love to live? They offer him belonging and like a community, and he turns it down, and then he instantly regrets it. You know, and I found that kind of relevant. And that's basically all I wanted to talk about. That's basically all I want to talk about. And I think this is probably the best take of this I've ever done. And, you know, I'm feeling happy about it. I think this one gets uploaded. Okay, well, I'm not even going to finish this run. I was playing like garbage, but, you know, what are you going to do? Thank you all for watching. I hope that was insightful. I hope that was conversational. Okay, bye.